does not, but it allows for the detention of American citizens
Actually, it does
without a
not.
trial? It does.
It doesn't. I actually have the bill right here. And furthermore, I have a colloquy that occurred on the House floor. And I also have President Obama's signing statement. And I'll read from all of these.
But his signing statement says that he won't incarcerate Americans.
No, the signing statement
He's
says...
also said lots of things that he is not
Well,
talking about.
let me assure you this, because you're not the first one to raise this question. And, I mean, this is something I take very seriously. You know, as somebody who defended our country, who served our country in combat, was wounded in the line of duty, as somebody who voted against the Patriot Act. You know, it's protecting our cherished way of life. It's something
Against the Patriot Act.
because it was patently and facially unconstitutional. But let me
You weren't
respond.
in office when they passed the Patriot Act.
We did a reauthorization of the Patriot Act this year. But let me respond to your question, because you raised a serious question. It has to do with H.R. 1540, the National Defense Authorization Act. A bill that actually was in excess of 500 pages that provides for our servicemen and women in uniform. It provides for their pay raises. It provides for their continuing education, the professional education, for their equipping. But it has two sections, sections 1021 and 1022, that have to do with detention. So I have actually 1021 and 1022 in front of me. The section I want to read to you in 1021 has to do with authorities. And what it says is, by the way, 1021, the title is Affirmation of Authority of the Armed Forces of the United States to Detain Covered Persons Pursuant to the Authorization for the Use of Force. Okay, that's section 1021. And this one here, you explicitly see stated Al-Qaeda, Taliban, or associated forces that are engaged in hostilities against the United States or its coalition partners. Okay. Subsection E, authorities. Nothing in this section shall be construed to affect existing law or authorities relating to the detention of United States citizens, lawful resident aliens of the United States, or any other persons who are captured or arrested in the United States. That's section E for 1021.
And what goes on after that?
Section 1022, military custody for foreign Al-Qaeda terrorists. Okay?
Why does why do people a lot more educated than I believe that this allows the government to detain American citizens without
I can't explain why people are reading that into it. I can tell you this much. If I thought that our
Why did
civil...
the president say that he specifically...
I will read from the president in a second, sir, but let me just tell you this. If I thought that our civil liberties
And
were
you want
being
the
stepped...
military to be the one to decide who goes?
Again, sir, if I thought that our civil liberties were being stepped on, if I thought we weren't going to be given our constitutional rights, I would have voted no. But I don't believe that's what the case, because I've read this very carefully. Now, let me read to you, this is a colloquy. Why this matters is that when matters are brought to the courts, among the things they do is they read directly from the statute, and then they try to derive congressional intent. And when they try to derive congressional intent, they go to the congressional record to see what was said. But I want to read to you, this is a colloquy that occurred between Mr. McKeon of California and Mr. Landry of Louisiana. Mr. McKeon: Mr. Speaker, I yield myself 1 minute to engage in a colloquy with my friend from Louisiana, Mr. Landry. Mr. Landry: will the gentleman yield? Mr. McKeon: I will yield to the gentleman from Louisiana. Mr. Landry: Mr. Speaker, I rise today in order to fulfill my constitutional duty of ensuring that the liberties and freedoms are protected of the men and women that this bill authorizes to fight for. The protections bestowed on U.S. citizens are the ones that I'm concerned with the most. The question now upon us is whether or not the NDAA impacts the rights of U.S. citizens to receive due process to challenge the legality of detention by the executive before Article III court. Mr. McKeon: this conference report does no such thing. It in no way affects the rights of U.S. citizens. Mr. Landry: my concern is that when the writ is suspended, the government is entirely free of judicial oversight. So do we agree that no section of the National Defense Authorization Act purports to suspend the writ of habeas corpus? Mr. McKeon, I agree completely. Mr. Landry, do you agree that, as the Supreme Court has held, a state of war is not a blank check for the President when it comes to the rights of our citizens? Mr. McKeon, I do. The Speaker Pro Tem, the time of the gentleman has expired. Mr. McKeon, I yield myself an additional 15 seconds. Mr. Landry, will the Chairman assure me that together we will work with the committee to further clarify the language contained in this bill in order to ensure that clear and precise language which protects the constitutional rights of American citizens is protected? Mr. McKeon, I do, and we'll be happy to work towards that end. Okay, why this matters is that anytime any matter goes to the courts, like I said, in addition to the statute that I read you verbatim of what the law is, this colloquy would be relevant information. Let me read from you the President. This is what the President said. Section 1021 affirms the executive branch's authority to detain persons covered by the 2001 authorization for the use of military force. This section breaks no new ground and is unnecessary. That's the view of the President. It breaks no new ground and is unnecessary. The authority it describes was included in the 2001 authorization for military force as recognized by the Supreme Court and confirmed through lower court decision. So what the President's basically telling you is that there's nothing in this law, the National Defense Authorization Act, that steps on our civil liberties.
The President wrote 6 or 8 paragraphs. He said what time you want.
Yeah, it's actually 2 pages, single spaced. I've got the whole thing. You're certainly welcome to read it. But the important thing is the President says this breaks no new
He
ground.
said that his administration will not detain American citizens. He will not follow this rule.
That's not what he says. If you read here, he says this breaks no new ground. He also says, that, I know what it says, but what it says is that he is not going to step on our civil liberties. He also says the law doesn't do that. The law breaks no new ground. So, I mean, I don't know what more to tell you because, look, I mean, if I thought that this bill stepped on our civil liberties, I would have voted no.
I don't believe it.
Well, I mean, I'm telling you as a guy that served our country and put it all on the line for our freedoms and protecting our cherished way of life. And I voted no to the reauthorization of the Patriot Act. So I think my credentials on this subject are sterling. You're certainly welcome to disagree. But again, these are the facts right here. This is what the law says, this is what the colloquy says, and this is what the President says.
You're well prepared for this question, didn't you?
Yes. Thank you.